Andre Whitehead, your host, and this is Conversations, our business, health, and community news show. We're excited about our broadcast today because we are on location at Lynchburg Area Center for Independent Living. Now, we've been running some of their commercials, and we're excited to get their story televised today. But we'll have a commercial break when I return. Conversations on location begins in a few minutes. This is Conversations, the business, health, and community news show produced by Whitehead Media Ventures and brought to you by the following. Business, health, and community news show. Thanks for joining us again today. Today, as I said in the opening, we're on location at Lynchburg Area Center for Independent Living, and we're excited to tell this story. This business is so multifaceted, we're excited to let you know who and what they are. We're also excited to be joined by my friend, Mr. Phil Dyson. He's the Executive Director of LACIL. Phil, welcome to the broadcast today.
Good to be here.
Now, let's kick it off, Phil. I'd like to get a little bit of bio. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. I've lived here in the Lynchburg area for the past 36 years.
Cool.
I have a diverse background. I began here in law enforcement as a Lynchburg police officer.
Wow.
Worked in child support enforcement. Worked at the opening of the Radisson Hotel, which is now the Holiday Inn Select downtown, part of the opening management staff there. I was Director of Safety and Security with Centra Health for several years in the late 1980s. And I'm retired from Lynchburg Social Services.
I hear you. Wow, what a huge bio.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the turn of events that took you to this organization, Lynchburg Area Center for Independent Living.
Okay, the center opened in 1998. It began as a satellite of the Blue Ridge Center based out of Roanoke in 1996. In 98, it became its separate nonprofit to serve people in Region 2000, which is Lynchburg and the surrounding counties. And the purpose of the center is people with disabilities helping other people with disabilities. It's what we term consumer run and organized. We're actually created by state law, and our duties are actually listed in state law, even though we're a private nonprofit. Those being peer counseling, in other words, someone with a disability relating to a person who may come in and what we call a consumer with a disability. We also, independent living skills, things such as basic cooking skills, financial management skills, that sort of thing. Personal advocacy is the other one, advocating for your own needs. What we're all about really is a person taking charge of their life. We're here to direct and guide, and the other major item is information and referral. People come to us looking for the resources, and we try to figure out what are the resources in the community that can help them meet their needs.
Okay.
We do have a small, what we call direct services fund, if we can't find any other source in the community to meet what the person is looking for, and it could be something as simple as, well, it's really not simple, but a wheelchair ramp, home modifications, door widening, bathroom modifications, that sort of thing.
Okay. Phil, how difficult, or has it been difficult to get your message out? I can only imagine with all the duties that you guys do, it's so complex. How difficult is it to get your message out, enabling people to contact you, to find you for help? Okay,
we're actually probably considered one of the best hidden resources in the community, even though, of course, we are listed at United Way Information, the 211 system. And we have been in a number of news stories over the years, on television and in the local print media too. But
hidden treasure.
Right.
What's the process? Let's say there is someone watching us and they have some needs.
Right.
What are some of the steps that they have to do to receive and take advantage of all that you have to offer?
What they would do would be to call our main telephone number, the 528-4971, and they can ask for an intake. In other words, a worker will sit down and go through an attempt to establish what the person's looking for. What they would turn to us if they had an unmet need.
Okay, so they just come in and go through the process. Okay,
Right, an intake process.
And how intensive is the intake process? What's that entail?
Well, basically, it's not a terribly complicated process. It's someone sitting down and speaking with the person and finding out what the person is looking for, what they need to live successfully in the local community.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about staff and the people who are on your team to assist you in meeting your goals. Without giving any big detail and names, tell me about the staff and what are they qualified to do?
Our main position is what's called independent living specialist. That's a person who would handle that initial intake and monitor and follow up to see that what we call consumer is receiving what they need to live in the community. The other thing we do along those lines is we handle what's called Medicaid waiver cases in two specific areas. One is called Elderly Disabled Consumer Directed Personal Attendance Services, a mouthful. What that is the person who had an interest in obtaining that, what they would be looking for is that they would have someone that they would have a need for someone to help them with routine living needs such as bathing, dressing. You're screened by that through your local Department of Social Services. Here in Lynchburg or in the surrounding counties, you would contact them and ask that you be screened for that. And then we are one of the what's called service facilitators. There are a number throughout the area. Right now we have about 200 people receiving that we oversee the cases here in the Lynchburg area. The other Medicaid waiver that we handle is what's called developmentally delayed, or DD for short. And we have about 25 of those cases. And that includes such things as autism and related disorders, would be called developmental disabilities. We also have nursing home transition coordination, which is paid for through Medicaid. If a person is in a long-term care facility and their stay is being covered by Medicaid and they wish to transition back to the community, and if it's deemed appropriate that they could return to life in a home environment, we have someone on staff that will work with them. Okay. We also have a staff member that works strictly on housing and transportation issues. One of our things is to work with local governments to identify needs and how they can help meet those needs. And there is a tremendous shortage of accessible units for people with disabilities in the Lynchburg area. And that would be that staff member's primary duty.
Wow.
We also operate a donated medical equipment program. There are such things as standard wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, hospital beds, the power chairs that lift people up, any items such as that. There is right now a tremendous pressing need for standard wheelchairs. And we also do cooperate with other organizations where if we have items that they need, we were even involved with Gleaning for the World. When the Haiti disaster hit, the earthquake, they called various agencies and we donate roughly at that point about 80%, and we would do this for any other worldwide tragedy that might occur. We would donate that equipment. That's people that have it in their own homes. A person may have gone into a nursing home, passed away, whatever. They no longer have the need for that equipment. They can bring it here to the center. We clean it, make sure it's in proper order, and see that it goes back out to the community for those that don't have any other way of obtaining that equipment. Now, if a person is in the community, they don't have Medicare or any other insurance, and they have a need, this is a place to turn. Our largest support comes from an ongoing grant from the Department of Rehabilitative Services, which is roughly $263,000 a year. We also receive about $100,000 in Medicaid fees for case service facilitation and case management. And then we receive other funding that we obtain from grants, private donations, and that may equal about 7% of our budget, $20,000 to $25,000 a year.
Okay, okay. You mentioned keeping people in their homes and making their homes ready for those with disabilities. So I guess we're talking about construction. How does that work? Do you sub out the work, or do you have your own construction team to help people as far as building ramps and widening door spaces? What about the construction component?
Yeah, we do have contractors that we work with. However, we do attempt to identify other community resources to fill those needs, because we have very limited funding to do it out of our own budget. So we do turn to organizations such as Rebuilding Together is one example to meet those needs. We also work with Lynchburg Housing and Redevelopment Authority and LINCAG.
Okay, okay. All right, well, Phil, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay tuned. You're watching Conversations, our business, health, and community news show. We're right back in a moment. Hello and welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Andre Whitehead. This is Conversations, our business, health, and community news show. We're on location in the office of Phil Thyssen. He's the Executive Director of Lynchburg Area Center for Independent Living. Phil, welcome back to the broadcast. You mentioned a little bit before we went to break about funding, and you talked about some of the funding sources.
Right.
But let's talk in detail about the funding. You guys are doing so much here, and I can only imagine the cost involved.
Right.
Let's talk about pulling it off funding-wise, and then on the sidebar, how can we get more help for LACIL?
Right. The basic operating, payroll, rent, and basic overhead costs are covered by the Department of Rehabilitative Services. We have to submit an annual budget. That's a state agency, and that funding has to be spent in very specific ways. With the money we get from Medicaid, basically that goes right back in to pay the payroll and the overhead for the workers that handle the Medicaid cases. Therefore, we have to grant writing and whatever fundraising we can to meet every other need. That's a tremendous challenge, like every nonprofit in this area is facing.
And LACIL is nonprofit?
Right, we are a nonprofit.
Okay. Now, did you get the hit, if you will, from the state as far as some of the cuts?
Oh, we've taken cuts over the past, since the end of 2007. So far, there haven't been significant, but right now what's pending before the General Assembly is a 10% budget cut in that $263,000 grant, and then there would be a 5% cut in Medicaid funds. So, and we're also facing, we do provide health insurance for our employees, and we're also facing a probable 10 to 15% increase in the health insurance premium comes July 1.
Wow, wow.